Jien naħseb tal-idea nitfaw Grog James inġat tazza siħbi.
Mela, nfaqqaw let's listen to the ASMR.
Ooh. The sweet sound of music. George,
It's not bad,
taħseb?
huh?
La, xejn.
Business is done better this way.
Ekku. Good sniff. The ice slightly melted. It builds character.
Let's see if the ASMR will work.
Ah. Nice. Few things bring me more joy.
So just to run you up on the background of this, he messaged me. I asked him exactly what his favorite drink was, so just try to make sure that we make it.
Good host. Salud.
Cheers.
To a good conversation. I'm sure it will be.
Oh, I think it will be really
Definitely,
good, man.
Definitely. I think both of us have way too much to talk about for the most part. I think keeping it concise will be the biggest issue.
Probably. And under
Oh,
2 hours.
Under 2 hours. Oh yeah. We have time.
That's the limit on the card, so.
We'll stick within the card.
Not gonna lie, it's quite
Stasa,
nice.
huh? Mala. I think I've just put you on. Since I tried this, I've never had anything else, Jameson, except for the occasional.
No, I mean, I have a colleague that's quite into whiskey, and he's recommending me some good stuff. So, a new hobby,
Beautiful. No,
quite expensive to be honest.
yeah, too expensive. Are you into cigars?
Cigars,
No, man.
rum,
Not
cognac.
for me. Rum and
Well-
cognac. Interesting.
I would with cigars, man, they pair really well, especially rum.
Never been a fan of cigars. Never
Really?
been. I don't like the unfamiliarity I have with the way in which you smoke it.
You're not supposed to inhale it.
Exactly. I'm not used to that.
I mean,
To each their own, I guess.
the funny part is, you know how many people I've met in cigar bars, like
There's cigar bars.
especially abroad, man. Like for networking, especially like business-wise,
Ayo.
because you meet a
Exactly.
a certain type of caliber there
At cigar bars.
at cigar bars, especially abroad, man.
I would learn how to smoke a cigar purely just to enter the cigar bar network. I think it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make.
I'll teach you.
So.
So, guys, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's the 3rd episode. So
First
we
for me.
have Chris Mercieca.
Mercieca. Yes, sir.
So we'll be running down a few things on business. So just to give you a background before I leave it to Chris to introduce himself, we both seem to like the same things. We
Except
Are-
cigars.
accept cigars. We are both of us are into business, startups. We're from Malta. Well, technically, someone is
Is
from
that
the sister island. But
Yes, sir.
yeah, we're both, I guess, similar backgrounds, although a bit different as well.
Are you my age?
I'm 25 in July.
I'm 25 in December, so same age. 99?
So same age, 99.
1999. Same.
So we're the same age as well.
Yep.
He's taller than me though.
Slightly. But
Yeah.
the camera doesn't show. It's fine.
More hair.
Yeah. No, soon I'm shaving it off though. Very soon.
Really?
So we'll have something else in common.
Okay, so that will be another common point.
That's it. Maybe the next podcast I'll will be matching in that aspect. Is it?
We should actually keep this a tradition. Because
Why not?
It's
Let's see
good
how it
to
goes.
touch up.
Type.
Yeah? So
Type.
I'll leave Chris introduce himself.
Okay. I never know how to start these things.
Well, to be honest, I only know a bit about you. So
True. I think the first time we ever met was about a year ago. I think this will give a good intro into exactly how things
yes,
shape
that's good.
themselves. So a year ago, I was, I think, on month 3 or 4 when I first reached out to you, when we first had our first conversation. It was about month 3 or 4 into my second startup and my first relatively successful one, which is Happy Pot. So we make 3D printed pots for plants, as you know. We've kind of pivoted lately into the corporate gift sector, again, maximizing the technology and the imaginative design that surrounds the 3D printing industry to create unique custom corporate gifts for companies. I think back then was about the time when we had made that shift towards the corporate gifts, because prior to that it was purely for the consumer market. So when we shifted that into corporate gifts, I realized I needed help in order to approach companies and the brands and businesses both in Malta and overseas because doing it all myself would have taken away from the business development side of things. As you know very well, the business isn't purely just generating sales and bringing in money, although it is very important. There's also other aspects that go into the managing of the business. So focusing purely on sales, while does most of the job, doesn't do all of it. So I had to bring on some help from the B2B outreach point of view in order to bring in more leads and close more sales so that I can focus on the general progression of the company. That's when I had to put out a LinkedIn post, I believe.
Exactly.
Right? And I had asked for, I think you had messaged me. Then we had a good conversation over the phone. We had also actually told me about PickAJet, which I was super interested in, because I mean, it's not very common that, first of all, in general, not to toot my own horn or yours, but it's not very common that someone of our age, especially in Malta, does something, against the grain, such as starting a business and going all in. And I believe back then you were pretty much all in as well. So I was intrigued by your concept. I think although it took us quite a bit of time between our first conversation and our second, I think there was always this mutual respect and acknowledgement of each other's efforts. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation here. But I'd like to know a bit more about what's happened for you since then, because we have plenty of time to talk about me.
So, like, the thing is, I think when we last spoke, I was looking for something. I think I was looking for a new venture, kind of like something to help me kind of do this alongside PickAJet.
Right.
And I mean, back then it was just starting out. So I believe I started this back in November 2022.
Okay, same. I launched in October 2022, so pretty much around the same time.
Exactly, like November 2022, yeah.
Wow, what are the odds?
For sure. And no, but like as I was explaining, like I always knew that this business would be kind of like a long-term project. So it's not something where you can just kind of like flip a finger and just start selling, like my previous businesses. Because I had just sold my previous business. Which was Hookah Malta.
Oh, right, yeah, you mentioned that.
So it was like retailing, importing and exporting shishas
goods
and anything in between. So I was just coming out of that because I just sold the business. But I think a year and a half ago, although I was quite excited for this, I had no clue on what I was doing. Man.
Right.
In a way, not in the work itself, in the terms of like upstarting a business of this caliber.
Right.
Because obviously you can't just put out an ad and start selling with this type of business. So PickAJet, it's a brokerage which is typically operates on the network you have.
True. And how's that network coming along?
It's getting there.
Good.
I've been seeing some very big progress in the last few months. I've only been seeing so there was a year where it was just constant like work, no results, work, but keep working.
You have to grind through it though.
And man, at points in time, you're like, what the hell am I doing, man?
I know. Sometimes when all the cards are stacked against you, the only thing that will have your back is your own blind determination and tinge of delusion as well.
Yeah, so it's like after then I started to also increase the output. So I started to put in more work. And eventually I started like going out there with the word, tipo, explaining to people what I'm doing.
Right.
And it's starting to come along because now people are talking about it. And on LinkedIn, obviously, I get certain type of, not content, but how do you say? Engagement from the posts.
Right.
So
good to see, bro.
It's slowly.
Hopefully by the next time we shoot this podcast, we'll both have done some interesting strides forward.
Yeah. So
let's see.
One thing that I'm very proud to say is like next 2 weeks from now, I'm going to a very big conference in Europe. One that I've dreamed of going.
Which is?
eBase.
Okay.
So all those like in the private aviation industry, most of them will be there because it's like the biggest conference in Europe.
Right.
And I mean, it's a good thing because last year I remember I couldn't afford it. This year, not only I could afford it, but it's like business money. So I'm actually from money that business generated.
Business expense, but a well-spent business expense, which is
but
excellent.
also like it's not coming out from your personal pocket money, you know.
That changes things.
It's a certain type of achievement.
Yeah. For me, that was a big one as well. I remember at the beginning, so although we launched this in October 2022 to the public, it had been in the works since January 2022. So pretty much for an entire year, maybe let's say 9 months. Up until that point, I had spent whatever money I had, which was not a lot, admittedly, but whatever money I had, to seeing it kind of go the distance. Looking back, I would never say it was a foolish decision, because of course now we are where we are, probably because I did that initial jump. But from the outside looking in, I can imagine it probably looked very stupid because investing X amount of money into something that doesn't even exist yet, probably from the traditional perspective, looks like it's a suicide. But that's then where the belief in one's own self comes in. That's where the little bit of determination and delusion that kind of sets you apart from the rest. And that's, again, not by all means to toot any horns, but I think making that initial step made it all the more the great achievement when it actually did something. I remember literally crying the first time we got a 4-figure sale. Now, no, 4-figure sale, I believe back then it was like €5,000, which...
That's not bad, huh?
It's not bad at all. I mean, that was our first corporate sale. So it was our first company that we partnered up with, that we created a custom product for them, and they gave to their employees as part of their end of year event. So back then I was like, I invested pretty much around the same amount of money over a year, and through a proposal, an email and 2 meetings, I made that back in like 4 days. And although I had a lot more expenses to cover, because of course at the beginning, as you know, as soon as you have money in, you have like 10 times that to spend, right? Bro, especially in the beginning. You like make some money and then suddenly you have 10 times that to possibly spend on investments. You know?
You're already in the minus.
That's that, you're already in the minus. No, but I can sympathize with that feeling of, this isn't my money, but I made this money somehow, you know, especially when it's kind of a one-man show. You're like, I've built something that can take its own money, spend its own money to get more money back, which it feels, it's very rewarding in itself. But bouncing off of that, aren't the expenses ridiculous, man, in the beginning, right? I don't think people can fathom just how much it takes.
I just took a big risk. Like I implemented a few new systems in the last few weeks. I have a monthly expenditure of not a lot, but about 300, 400 euros every month just on business expenses.
Yeah, right.
And that's coming out of my pocket money at the moment,
right.
You know, because the business is still kicking off.
Of course.
So it's...
Yeah, I mean, it takes a toll. Eventually, unless you keep it up. So you mentioned something earlier when you said you went fully in it and like dedicated your time and effort into it. That you can do for a couple days, a couple weeks, a couple months, but keeping it up is a completely different monster, bro. I mean, the act of being consistent is probably the one thing which I continue to struggle and will probably continue to struggle with throughout my entire life. And that's not because, you know, I'm very easily distracted. So I have shiny object syndrome all the way.
I'm fidgeting.
All the way. I'm fidgeting at all times. If I see a fly go by, I just suddenly remember, you know, trauma from 8 years ago, and then I forget I'm doing the financials at the moment, you know. So no, it's easy to get distracted, especially when you have so many things on your plate. But consistency is key. In fact, I need to actually put together some systems. This year would be very, very much focused on putting together the systems, which would run regardless of whether or not I slip up, hopefully. So of course, right now, up until a few months ago, it was a one-man show. Then there was December 2023 was a big hit. It was a big hit on a positive side because it was the month in which we sold the most product. So in the month in which we invoiced the most work. It was also a big hit to A, my ego, and B, the structure of HappyPod, because it happened to coincide with the time when I had to go to the US, and running a business during its busiest time of the year from halfway around the world is very much easier said than done.
Because your business is local.
Businesses, so far, it has been local. So up until that point, we had never sold anything outside of, you know, off of the shores of Malta. So everything was here. It was made here, it was marketed here, it was sold here. So it had to be delivered here. So doing it from, you know, 6 time zones away was no easy task. And that led me to realize that unless I have the systems in place that are able to pick up the slack and make up for my inadequacies or shortcomings, then I'm losing out. So this year has been heavily focused on going back to the drawing board rather than focusing on purely bringing in money, knowing how to best handle the business that comes in, not just bringing in money. I see a lot of businesses locally and overseas, I mean, it's pretty commonplace, where the focus is on bringing in sales. But then what happens is you overpromise and underdeliver. And that is a sin in business. I mean, you have to do the opposite. You have to always underpromise and overdeliver. Exactly. So I'm trying to master that art now, which seems to be doing quite well, especially now that things are a bit stagnant while we do the relaunch. But I'm taking my sweet time so that when we do the relaunch, we can deliver exactly on what we promised and more.
So before we continue this conversation, explain to everyone what Happy Pot is.
Okay.
Because I don't think...
Right, there's not much context. It's
exactly.
all very, very
So it's
blurry.
very broad right now, so
Okay.
I think
Okay.
it would be best to introduce...
Right. So we touched on this briefly earlier, but essentially what Happy Pot is a playful take on the mundane plant pot. So everyone is used to seeing these brown, boring plastic plant pots everywhere. About 2 years ago, I had this idea to happify the typical plant pot. My idea was, at that time, at the very beginning, was to slap a smiley face on a normal happy pot and on a normal pot and call it a happy pot. But then that transformed into what I now consider a movement, which basically addresses multiple problems that we have in society. The first is boring plant pots. So because for the most part they are not insignificant, because of course they serve a purpose, but they are unextraordinary.
Yeah.
We try to go a different route by making them fully customizable, by adding an interchangeable, removable badge to add that a bit of a personal touch. And we also use 3D printing to create wholly unique and playful designs that people would actually enjoy looking at. So the idea was to create a product, and this is a very powerful, very central ethos to me, is to create a product that people smile when they look at. Now today I'm fully immersed in product development, and that is one of the non-negotiables. Unless it brings a smile to your face, I probably won't design it. So backtracking a bit, sustainability has always been at the core of what we do. In fact, beyond the actual problem of boring pots, the biggest problem that we are consistently trying to solve is the unsustainable nature of the alternative, of the typical unsustainable plant pots. We actually did quite a bit of research, secondary and primary research, which found that billions of plant pots are thrown in landfills or incinerated every single year. And that causes quite a big dent on the global climate, on the general wellness of the planet. And so by engaging in sustainable methods and practices, we're trying to make a dent on this global problem that is unsustainable practices within the plant pot industry.
All right.
3D printing in itself, while being a cool emerging technology, is also a super sustainable technology because it uses the same wattage as that light bulb to actually create something, while also having less than 1% waste on any product that you use, because the program literally prints exactly what it needs to print. So beyond that, we also use sustainable materials as well. So it's mostly biodegradable materials that are a great alternative to the injection molded typical plastics that you find in stores and whatnot. And we also go a step ahead by planting a tree for every pot that we sell. So far we've planted just over 2,000 trees.
Oh, that's
actually quite a bit more than 2,000. We've almost hit the 3,000 mark in about a year and a half, which I would like that number to be quite higher. In fact, we have a goal of 10K this year. But we do that by partnering up with a UK company that has different planting sites around the world. So essentially, we found it was the most cost-effective but also sure way for us to make an impact by partnering up with a company that already does it. Of course, we also engage in some physical activism ourselves. So we actually hold our own cleanups. We do them regularly. We have one the day after tomorrow as well.
Friday or Saturday?
Saturday. We have one tomorrow, Saturday in Gozo. And that is just our way of, one, cleaning up after the world and taking care of our own local environment, but also engaging our community. So when I mentioned the word community earlier, it's a very important word to me. It's not just about creating a product that makes people smile. It's about collectively following this kind of movement. It's gone beyond just creating a product that sits on a shelf and looks pretty on a desk. It's now something that I would like to bind people together by some common values or principles, and luckily the community that we've built so far is mostly made up of young environmentalists who genuinely enjoy taking care of themselves and the world around them. And it brings me such joy to actually see these people from all walks of life. Some are moms with their kids, and some are people my age, some are a bit younger. We've had upwards of 35 people cleaning up Golden Bay on a Sunday early afternoon, which doesn't seem like a big feat, but it's honestly, it fills me with such pride and joy that it's good to have built something that's not just about the money making aspect of business. It's a beautiful thing, and I'm super happy to see it actually progressing, and I'm looking forward to what happens in the future. So I don't think I might have described Happy Pot in its totality, because of course there's too much going on in here to actually boil it down, but that's pretty much a good summary, I would say. So
for everyone that's interested, the website is happypot.co.
Right now under maintenance, because we're redoing the product line. I'm about 85% of the way through with designing the new range.
You're designing the website as well, or?
The website, yes. We just got a new partner. So in October of last year, which was around our 1-year anniversary, I had spent about a month and a half redesigning it. I learned Shopify from scratch because I didn't want to, pay anyone my hard-earned Happy Pot money to build the website for me. And I figured I would probably, there would be less micromanaging if I just micromanaged myself. So I just did that.
The time it takes, though.
Time it takes is ridiculous, especially with my perfectionism. It's crazy. So I spent like upwards of a month and a half just grinding it out at home, day to night, coffee, changing every single... Dude, it's crazy. It's crazy.
It's never perfect.
It's never perfect. And now I'm at a point where we're going to redo the website bit by bit, so we're structuring it landing page by landing page. But if I was to do it myself, it would just drive me up the wall. And now I'm really holding on to the whole concept of value for time. So if I spend 10 hours doing the website versus 10 hours being out there trying to generate some money, I would much rather give some money to someone else to do something that I'm not so great at, end up with a better result, and hopefully build some money along the way. So that's my thought process in partnering with a supplier. So we found someone from the US who will be taking on the redevelopment of the website. And we're starting with the corporate page. The corporate page because our average order value for a corporate order is much higher than the consumer. The average 15, 20, 50 euro transaction. So our thought process is build a solid B2B landing page and have a couple of great running ads in different locations around the world. And hopefully with 1 or 2 orders, we'll be able to get that money back, and then we'll continue to build on the rest. So that's the game plan at the moment.
Quite smart.
I'm trying. I've thought about it quite a lot.
No, that's actually quite good. I mean, I haven't arrived at that point yet. Probably eventually when the website will need.
No, but I do highly suggest that you try it yourself. No, I mean, this is the same for most things. I mean, even if you're not great at it,
you learn.
Giving it to someone else is the easy way out. But doing it yourself puts you, as you mentioned earlier, kind of back against the wall. Either I do it or it doesn't happen. And that is usually where greatness happens.
Exactly. And the thing is, like, at certain points, there are things that you would have to do everything up to a point where it starts generating enough income till you start outsourcing.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that's the reality of it. So, but you know what? There's so much help online.
Oh, yeah, everywhere. Not just online, everywhere.
I mean, as I was explaining, like, I learned video editing completely from YouTube. I mean, yes, I was into photography and quite knowledgeable about it. Most video editing was learned through YouTube.
I'm the same with product design. So I've never really had a background in product design. I've always, similar to how you started with photography for videography, I was always into sketching and drawing pencil to paper.
Okay.
But that is nowhere near the kind of software and expertise and the learning curve of 3D product design.
You use CAD?
No, I use Fusion at the moment, and I'm experimenting with Blender as well. Blender is more of a sculpting tool. Fusion is pretty much excellent for creating the products that I need to be creating, which is straight line, curve based, and everything in between. So having a good base is important, but just like you said, there's so many resources out there, and even people. Like, now that I know that you're pretty good at videography, I'm probably going to ask you and annoy you to give me tips and tricks here and there.
Why not?
So for sure, tap into the people you know, definitely.
And it's all about, like, apart from, I mean, when you're learning a new skill, it puts you into a certain type of mindset. I believe that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of like pushes you out of your comfort to learn something new.
Yep.
And I mean, there's so much more. Like education can be pushed in so much more directions nowadays.
Yeah, it's
That you don't even have to go to study video editing or
I think
cinematography.
now is probably one of the, because lately I'm sure you've noticed, like growing up, you were always told, just like I was always told, that you need to get a college education in order to be something in life. Now both of us are fortunate and probably smart enough to have a college education, but smartness isn't purely college education derived.
No.
Today there are so many resources out there that you can educate yourself probably more than someone at college would. I mean, if you dedicated enough time and effort into learning a course on something or purely mastering. I know people who 3D design excellently and have never had a 15-minute lesson on 3D design. Something on YouTube, some self-experimentation. It's the same goes with, okay, maybe some things like engineering might be a bit different.
Or nursing,
right?
Or
Because there's
doctor, or
whatever. I wouldn't trust a surgeon with no formal education.
Now there's AI robots coming in.
Okay, I wouldn't trust
I
that
don't
either.
know how I
I don't know how I feel
to
about
be
that.
honest.
Because if anything happens, you try it first and let me know how you do.
Not gonna lie, I won't be the first one
Right. No, me either, definitely.
to try that.
No, but now it's probably one of the few times in the history of the world where you can, in the history of the modern world, where you can be on par, if not better, than someone with a formal education, purely if you apply yourself and look in the right places.
That's true.
And that goes for business, that goes for some professions or some arts or some jobs and roles. Business especially. In fact, you hear a lot of these stories on how it started, on how this mega billionaire became who he is today. And usually starts from, not always, but usually starts from a failure. I think yesterday I heard, I don't know if it was, I think it was Kevin O'Leary, the guy
Rainer, from Rainer. Kevin O'Leary.
Shark Tank guy, one of the sharks. One of the sharks on
the
the
guy in
on the USA Shark
into
Tank.
watches.
Exactly.
Yes, that guy.
exactly,
Okay,
that guy.
I know him from his
And
watches.
I heard him say a story where he
Not Rainer.
he basically had a job at a shopping mall, and I think he was an ice cream scooper. Yes, he was an ice cream scooper. So he was tasked to scoop ice cream all day. And he only got the job because there was a girl who worked in a different shop across the shopping mall that he was into. He fancied this girl. So he wanted to get a job that was close to her. But at the end of the day, on his first day, his boss asked him to scrape the gum off the floor in front of the shop because it wasn't attractive to the people walking by. So she wanted him to basically scrape this gum. And he was like, but you hired me as an ice cream scooper. And she told him, no, I hired you to help, to be my worker. So you do what I tell you to do. So he didn't scrape the gum off the floor and he quit. So that was his first day. He quit and he never got a job after that.
Wow.
So, and today he's a shark on Shark Tank and a mega billionaire. So realistically, it's not about having a formal education. It's just about applying yourself and being determined enough and driven by that one purpose. So for Kevin O'Leary, his purpose was, I never want someone to be able to control what I do and dehumanize me in a way which I don't feel comfortable with. If that drive and if that question is big enough in your heart and mind, then anything can happen.
So on this topic, when was the first time you started feeling that sense that you wanted to always work for yourself?
To be honest, it wasn't always there. I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be an architect, and then I wanted to be a lawyer. In fact, I studied law for 2 years.
Okay.
I practiced with an actual practicing lawyer who happened to be my cousin for 2 years while I was doing the course. And the course just wasn't for me, and I quit. And then that was like a really, what now kind of moment.
Setback.
Not a setback, but just a massive question mark that was staring at me the whole time. And then I went into business because I had a couple of friends at the time who were in business. I was actually going to be an accountant at one point. I was going to go into ACCA with no O-level in accounts. So I was going to do a crash course on O-level, intermediate, A-level, degree and masters, all in like 2.5 years with Deloitte. I had spoken to the guy of Deloitte and everything, and they were going to give me a position. And I was like,
Are you sure?
And then it was crazy, bro. And then
When was this?
this was
How old were you at this point in time?
not old enough. I think I was 17. No, I was 17 when I first went to uni. I was 19 at this point.
19.
19 at this
Wow,
point,
okay.
exactly. So I did 2 years of law. I was 19, and then this happened. And then I was around the table with a bunch of my friends, and 2 of them were doing ACCA or were somehow involved in accounting. And we're like, Chris, I would not imagine you as an accountant for more than a couple of hours. And foolishly, this is after I had already spoken with the Deloitte people and was offered the job. I was like, but what does an accountant actually do? And they said an accountant crunches numbers all day, and he sits behind a cubicle and he tries to make the targets and the numbers, and he basically just looks at digits day and night. And I've always hated maths. Like, I was decent at it, but I've always hated maths. I was like, I cannot
So how in the
cannot do this, man. And I felt like that dinner around that table was God or whoever just grabbing me from my full head of hair. I was like, bro.
or slapping you to get back into
I was
yourself?
like, no, not for you. So then I just completely U-turned and I went for marketing and management as my 2 majors, and I went into BCom, so Bachelor of Commerce in University of Malta. And again, there was no end in sight at that point. Like, I wasn't planning on becoming a manager. I wasn't planning on becoming a marketer. I just knew that those were easy courses.
Okay.
That was it.
That's
So it was. I had an inkling that I liked marketing because I got a C in marketing. It was really based off of a hunch. Literally, it was a shot in the dark. And I was at a point where even that choice was questioned. But I remember the first few months, I was enjoying it because it was easy. I was enjoying it because the people in the marketing and management courses were relatively nice. The teachers were okay. My classmates were cool. But when I used to go home in the weekends to go to, and my dad would ask, but what can you do once you graduate? Like, what will you do with marketing and management? And I used to pull an answer out of my ass every single time. And I used to be like, with marketing, I can work with any marketing company. And with management, I can manage whatever. Now, please, mind you, I had never managed myself at that point, let alone a company or a team of people. So it was very unplanned, to say the least. And then I was fortunate enough to go up to the US because I was on an exchange program called ISEP through the University of Malta.
all right.
And I was stationed like a soldier. No, I was basically at University of Charlotte in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Go Royals. And that was probably the defining moment of my life. I think being in a situation where you go from living and being born and raised in an island of 30,000 people to a city of 2 million and a country of more than 500 million people, it's just completely upending. Like, you start looking at life completely differently, you know. And being there for a couple of weeks is one thing, but immersing yourself into the culture for 6 months, although 6 months doesn't seem like a long time, it's enough. You know, it's enough. And of course, I was lucky enough to be living kind of the college life where you don't have to worry about expenses or you don't have to worry about this or that. So of course, it's a different scenario if you're working there or raising a family there or something. But the situation in which I was allowed me to really observe and allowed me to kind of, I had those moments of, yes, struggling to make grades, but also to reflect on what is going on around me. How is it different to life back home? What are the high achievers doing here versus the high achievers doing back home? And I realized that the people who achieve so much in Malta, while their efforts are admirable and what they've done is remarkable, when you look at it from a larger picture, it's not even scratching the surface. And now that's not to undermine everything that a proper Maltese businessman has done, but the world is so much bigger and there's always a ceiling in Malta. And that led me towards, again, not even a concept or an idea of a specific product or company or project, but more so of a way of thinking in which you could always reach way more people purely by leaving. Not by leaving, but by changing your environment, just by changing the frame of mind and the targets that you have. And I feel like being raised in Malta, and I'm sure you can agree with me on this, it puts you in a certain frame of mind, which allows you to believe that you can only achieve so much.
Yes and no. Because I don't know if you know about, but I've also moved abroad at a young age.
Where did you go?
So I moved at 19. So I started working at a young age while I was studying, and I was always into like private jets and this kind of stuff. So that thing where I knew what was attainable.
Right.
I mean, people spending 700k on 2 flights, man.
Chump change.
So it's like it always showed me that like there are people who made it, and kind of like it's not our limitations are not actually what's kind of like define us, because there's so many bigger things in this world. So I always had this mentality. So I've always grown up with a mentality like there's a lot of wealth in this world. So, and at a certain point in time, I remember, I think I was only just turning 18, man. I was like, screw this shit. I'm like, I want to make it for myself. Like,
Yeah.
I was getting fed up from my manager. I was getting fed up from the systems that didn't make sense.
Yeah.
I was always someone that kind of, not challenges, but if I don't like something, I'm going to speak about it correctively.
I see.
So, and it's funny because I remember this point at a young age where I've always felt this. And at 19, I was like, screw this stuff, man. I need change. I like found a new job in Germany, in Frankfurt.
Wow.
And
You like went out of your way to look for a job in
no,
Germany?
I was looking for a job outside of Malta. And I just, like, in 3 months
and
resigned.
What was the job?
It was sales and operations manager, duty operations manager.
Nice.
So, small boutique airline, private jets, much smaller than what I was currently working at, but I was going to start learning sales and this kind of stuff.
Nice.
And I just went for it. Like, I didn't know what I was going into because, to be honest, it failed miserably, man.
That company?
Not the company, my experience,
the move itself, I see.
Because then COVID, so while there, I found a better job and I was going for it just the same time that COVID was coming into Europe.
Oof, okay.
And they cancelled my contract and it was like
ouch.
Shit, and it was like crap. But you know what? I'm very glad that happened, to be honest.
It has to. I mean, some of the... I can resonate with that, especially more, maybe not recently, but some of the lowest lows that I've had have been the precursors for the highest highs possible, because as soon as you're at the pits of hell, as soon as you're at the very, very bottom, you're like, how can it get any worse? It can't. So then you have to start looking upwards, because upwards is the only way you can go.
And that's the thing, like that's the realization point, like you have nothing to lose.
Yeah, absolutely
like,
nothing.
Literally nothing. No money,
yeah.
no friends, no nothing. I'm just alone in a new city, like fuck it, I just have to make it work somehow.
And even if you're alone in a new city, maybe it's more of a clean slate, so it's easier to kind of wipe off. But
yes,
realistically, everywhere you go in the world, in whatever position you make, asking yourself what is the worst that can happen is always, I would say, a good move. Of course, you can't ask yourself that and just go doing risky shit all the time, because then that puts you in a bit of a sticky situation probably. But we're lucky enough to be young, you know, we're 24.
That's what I talked about in my last video.
So
risk it.
We have to risk it. How else would you get the biscuit?
That's true. And like, this is the thing, like nowadays I lost a bit of money back in the move, but man, I look back and like that was one of my nicest years living there, and it changed my perspective like drastically. So now looking back, no wonder I feel like I don't fit in at times in this island, because like the mentality is so broad.
Right. I have a question for you.
Tell me.
So far, what has been the biggest lesson in the past year and a half?
Year and a half.
2, whatever, since you started. And how has that framed the current you?
I think the one thing that I've really started to emphasize on in the last 2 years is mental health.
Okay.
And physical health as well. I mean, there's so many lessons, man. It's hard to.
True, too many.
Because I failed so many times.
Yeah.
And like, that's what the thing is, like, the more you fail, the more you learn.
The more you learn. The bigger the failures, the bigger the lessons.
So, I think the biggest failure, the biggest lesson I've learned.
It's a deep question. Huh?
It's a deep question.
Because there's so many failures and lessons.
Because it goes into personal stuff as well. I mean, even like personal stuff that you... So, I've recently come out of a relationship, so that taught me quite a lot.
Okay.
So I'm very, I hold that experience very, not fond, but how do you say that word?
It's meaningful.
Yes, because it taught me so much.
Well,
It taught me so much that going out of it now, it changed the perspective on how you look at things and how you also look at yourself.
I'm sure. I mean, I'm the same. I've had a few relationships since I was like 14, and I started young. Started
No,
way
you-
too young.
Like that's
Way too
young.
young. I think
For a
14,
gazetting.
14 to 16, 16 to 18. And then I went a bit off the walls for a year. And then 19 to 21. And then 21 to 22 or 23. So I've always kind of been in relationships. And it does kind of change. Not kind of change. It completely changes the way in which you frame the next step. So for me, it was like, one, I don't know if it's normal or not. But then again, what is normal to be in so many relationships? I feel like every single person that I loved at whatever point taught me so many things, both about that person and the species in general, but also about myself. So every subsequent relationship after that, I applied lessons from the previous one to kind of better both myself and that person. And now that I've kind of been going it alone for the past year and some change, it really puts things into perspective. Like, as a result of my past life, both my relationships, both, you know, my professional life, both my relationship with my family, my friends and everything. Of course, I can't say I've mastered it because you never truly master it, but now I feel I know what I want, both from myself in a relationship and also from that other person in a relationship. And that applies both for the personal context, but also from a professional context. So if you're able to learn how people think, for the most part, because you never really know, but if you're able to learn and absorb that knowledge and apply it to different facets of your life, I think that emotional maturity that you get from a relationship, whether it's a successful one or a failed one, it's applicable to every single sector of your life.
For sure.
So I know for a fact that if, I don't know, I was belittled or if I was made to feel like less than I am in a relationship, I know that I wouldn't stand for that in a professional context either. So if I'm working with someone who adamantly tries to make me feel like what I am doing or what I am offering isn't enough, I'll say thank you very much and have a nice day.
And you walk away.
And you walk away. But that emotional maturity wouldn't be where it is at if I hadn't gone through all of those personal relationships. So I do feel that every step of the way makes you infinitely more wise. Of course, now I'm sure we're not the wisest, but we're getting there, no?
Yes, but the more the more you go through experiences, the more you discover things about yourself as well.
True.
And I feel like also business requires points in time where you go into solitude.
Yeah, the fortress of solitude.
The fortress of solitude. And like you have to be comfortable with being by yourself.
Yeah. I know for a fact, because I saw one of your videos on YouTube, that you went through a certain phase of your life where you consciously made an effort to be alone.
Right now.
Right now. Okay.
I mean, right
I'm
now,
I'm
not
kind
as
of in a similar phase, but I'd like to have
not as extreme.
I'd like to have your input, not input, but I'd like to have an idea as to, first of all, what prompted that change. Second, how you feel in it. And third, what benefit you think that will give you when you venture out and be less alone in the world.
So the first question, I think... What was the first question?
What prompted you
What
to actually
prompted me?
actively want to be alone?
Distractions, man.
Phone?
Distractions.
General?
No, even like trying to find time for everyone. These
Right.
coffee meetups, meeting up for coffee,
These
meeting
bullshit
up for
meetings,
there.
man. Yeah, I know.
Not getting
It's like
anything
5-minute
out
meetings
of there.
that end up being an hour and a half.
Even with friends.
Yeah.
Even with friends. Sometimes you ended up... So there are people where I'm friends with them. But I'm friends with them up to a certain level. Tipo, and I was noticing that I was going on so many coffee runs every week, which don't give me any value.
I see what you mean. I understand
And
what you
then I kind of like, even dates, for example.
mean. No, I don't do dates.
I
don't
mean-
do dates.
I was noticing that if you go on a date and so there are two types of things when you go into a date. You already kind of have a feeling on how the date would go.
Usually, first couple sentences, you have an idea.
So
First-
typically, like sometimes I would just say, oh yeah, let's just go for it and see where it goes.
Because you need a change of scenery. So you're like, okay, let's kind of shift the
And-
environment a bit.
Even, as a break. But then I was like noticing, like, dude, I'm wasting so much time
Yeah.
on these pointless meetings. So that was kind of like prompted a bit of a change. The second thing is, I mean, again, I meet friends. So now I have a very close friends, circle of friends that I regularly meet. But I try to keep it also, like, for example, for the weekends. So
Right.
the weekdays and the evenings, I leave them for productivity.
Okay,
Or if not productivity, I read.
fair enough.
Um,
What do you read? Self-development?
Self-development books,
Nice.
habits.
Yeah, I saw a
I've
few
been
familiar titles here.
improving.
Nice.
I've been trying to work on myself,
you
my
write?
routine. I do.
You should.
So I do.
Nicely
I
done.
have this book, always writing stuff, and I record.
I have one as well. Bro, I just did something. Let me show you.
Show me.
So I just bought this book.
Remarkable.
No, not even. I just bought this tiny book. Well, it's too far away anyways. I bought this tiny book off of the Gozo Ferry. And the idea for buying this book, I have a bunch of journals, right, that I write in to kind of reflect on something that's happened throughout the day, something I've learned, something I've seen, something I appreciate, something I value or whatever. And I noticed that the first one I ever started, which was last year, was super meaningful. In fact, it's one of my most prized possessions. I have some of my most thought out and genuinely sentimental writings that I've ever written in my life, and I enjoy looking through it, and no one else has seen it. But the second and third one, journal, I mean, became more so of a ledger. It became kind of like a book, like a to-do list. Like I see all of I became so progressively more busy that
Mm-hmm.
throughout my journals, rather than it being self-reflection, it became more so of a what do I have to do? And to me, there are more professional-esque mediums that you can use rather than an actual journal.
True.
So I wanted to find something that is purely writing for writing's sake. So I bought this small journal. I had been thinking about this for a while, and I wanted to use this small journal just to challenge my creativity. And I figured, how do I challenge my creativity at random moments of every single day? So I set 2 alarms in a day,
Mm-hmm.
one for 9:09 a.m. and one for 9:09 p.m. I don't know why 9:09, I just like the
That's
number.
random.
And essentially every single time that the alarm rings, I have to write something in this notepad, and that something has to fall within a category of activities that challenges somehow my creativity. So the way in which I've started doing it, my first couple of entries were finding a random object, finding a random thing or a concept or a person or a place, and creating a story around it. So the first time I did it, which was a few days ago now, I bought the journal on the Gozo ferry, on the boat that travels between Gozo and Malta, and I gave a bit of an introduction as to what this journal will hold, and then I wrote my first creative endeavor entry. And the object I chose was a boat, because I was on the boat. So I was like, how do I make my brain think creatively on what the boat represents or what the boat is? So my thought process was, okay, where did the boat come from? So without even thinking twice, I just wrote a story about the first person that would have ever come across the concept of a boat. So I wrote about a primitive man that was washing his feet at the side of a river, that had been frequenting that river every single day to wash his feet after a long day of hunting with, like, you know, his scratched body going through the forest and whatnot. And
Okay.
he would always see these birds along the horizon, but he would never have met those birds on land. He would only see them on the horizon. So there was always this concept of something that is unattainable purely because of geographical distance and because of the inability for one to move on water. And then one fine day, while he was contemplating the fact that these birds were so far away and unreachable, he noticed a leaf floating through the river. So then he said, but why can that leaf float so effortlessly and I can't? So then he built a raft, and then that raft eventually, through years and centuries and millennia, became a boat. And I feel that this concept of challenging my creativity, which I feel is my strong suit, you know, the creative muscle is one which I wouldn't like to have complacent. I would love for it to be something that I challenge every day and grow and actually, you know, reps and sets of
That's-
creativity.
uh-huh.
So I'm really enjoying it. And this whole writing journey so far has been truly transformational, man.
I mean, that's impressive actually, considering. Because you just built a story.
Just randomly about a boat, huh? Yeah, and I always sketch the thing
Cause-
as well. So you have to give it a bit of pizzazz. And I never show this to anyone. Huh? Like no, maybe on my deathbed deck I'll show like the grandkids the story of the boat, but I don't plan on showing
No,
it.
I
to
mean,
anyone.
typically it's the things that I enjoy writing. Thoughts, like
Thoughts,
for example,
passing thoughts.
I've started a video series, just literally like finding quotes and like unwrapping them
Okay.
and like understanding them.
Philosophical quotes.
Philosophical stuff, so it can get quite deep.
Okay.
That's, I mean, it's not the first time that I show them to friends and they're like, "Ooh," not they're trying to
Not
understand
receptive
like,
to it, yeah.
what the fuck is this shit, bro? Like,
Yeah.
are you okay?
How I wanted to ask you a question about that. So, I surround myself with people who are either my friends from a long time ago, who I have amazing conversations with, amazing relationships with, and I wouldn't trade them for anything else in the world, or business people. So it's two very different extremes, two very different kind of people, who of course provide a different sort of value to my life. But I oftentimes feel like there are few people who can actually understand me in the sense of course, I don't have a partner who I can, like console in at the end of the day, just lay on bed and talk about, everything that's happened and stuff like that. So how do you handle, if at all, because it could be that don't handle it, but I want to ask you anyway, the feeling of not having someone to relate to, oftentimes, maybe in this young business world that we're in?
That was a learning experience since when I broke up with my partner.
Okay.
Because I think, well, I do have friends that I speak about business on, but then either I don't have for both, to be honest.
Right.
I think it's weird.
Something I've learned that I think you should also be a tidbit. So I've recently told someone that I was complaining about the uselessness of dates. I told you I don't date. That doesn't mean I never dated. I used to get bored and like ask someone to go out on a date. Usually someone I knew or someone I briefly met or whatever, and just go on a date. And I used to say, I don't take anything from these dates. I told this to a person. I don't get any value from these dates. And then that person told me, sometimes you don't have to derive any value from a conversation or from anything. It's just for the sake of doing it. What do you think about that? Because value is subjective, first of all. Let's just say that.
I agree and
So
disagree.
what is value to you might not be value to me, and vice versa. But
I think that would be a waste of time.
I think it would be a waste of time, honestly,
Especially right now.
Because, again, depending on what value is to you. So if value is purely detaching yourself from your typical
I'd rather be alone.
corporate slash... I'd rather be alone, honestly.
I told you, like,
Honestly.
right now, one of my things that I really enjoy doing, it's like one of the things that I really look forward to. My Kindle, my motorbike, go for coffee runs on Sunday morning and just like be alone.
Kindle. My friend Matthew has a Kindle and we give him shit all the time. Matthew, if you're looking at this, we found you someone who actually respects Kindles.
I used to be a book guy, but it's so convenient, man, especially for the motorbike.
I'm sure it is. But
So-
not for me.
Like, getting back to the point, no, I think if I'm not getting any type of value, it doesn't have to be any physical, like the physical stuff, but especially if I'm not getting like emotional intelligence from the conversation. It's not emotional
Yeah,
intelligence.
but it kind of is though. No. It
If
has to
it's
be
not-
somehow stimulating,
Exactly.
not just the primitive side of you,
Yeah.
but also the forward-thinking,
the-
emotional, rational side of you as well. And if I don't have that, then I'm not engaged. Could that be a personal or a professional?
And right
Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
like, one of the things that I'm struggling with, man, is to connect with people.
Connect with people how?
Like, I feel like everyone I meet is so hollow.
Hollow.
Like, literally, man. Like, they
Hollow.
just speak about stupid stuff.
Like nails and hair and
But not
cars
even girls, man.
in
Not
general.
even girls, in general. Like, maybe I'm surrounding myself with the wrong people. That's
The
potentially...
thing is, these people exist everywhere you go. And probably there's so many more hollow people than there are less hollow people out
I'm
there.
sure.
But it's not just a matter of you're surrounding yourself with the wrong people. I think it's just a matter of you happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But also, you need to understand this very important point. If you consistently surround yourself with people who are full rather
Full.
than hollow,
Okay.
then you would never appreciate the fullness of that person. Much like if you're constantly living on a high, you would never truly appreciate that
The-
high.
yeah.
If you have it good, you would never truly appreciate what it means to have it good. I mean, you have to go through these meaningless conversations, these dates that go nowhere, these interactions that give you very little to truly appreciate interactions like this. We're actually having a valuable conversation and we're contributing something to each other that you can actually watch back, which is something very unique.
I do watch these back.
It's you have to have a mix of both. You know, I think it's a matter of living life in a way which you take it as it comes has paid me dividends in being very appreciative and grateful of what I have, because I've surrounded myself with, like I said, business people who, although have a lot, have very little. You know, because as cliche as it sounds, and I'm sure you've heard this a lot before, money or success buys very little happiness. And money is not relative, but success is relative. What is successful for me might not be successful to, you know, a butcher or a plumber or someone else. And that butcher or plumber might be 10 times more happy than I am. So it's just about the perspective which you hold and living life to the best of your ability without becoming a bit too cynical. You know, we have to appreciate these hollow conversations, because if we don't, then we'll just despise the rest of the civilization that doesn't engage in the same conversations that we do.
That's true. I mean, the one thing that I struggle with, and we have to get back to your questions.
I forgot what the question was at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's fine. Continue.
So it's like, man, the like staying present.
Oh yeah, I have this tattooed on me actually.
What do you?
So this is a book that I read by Hector Garcia and Francesc Miralles. It's the same people that wrote Ikigai.
Okay.
They wrote this book called Ichigo Ichie.
I know the book. I never read it.
Essentially, the understanding that this moment will never happen again. And for me, that's one of the most profound things that we're able to understand, as opposed to what a duck or a tiger can understand, is that time is exactly what it is. It's fleeting, you know? I mean, if you continuously live in the past, you're going to be haunted or rewarded by whatever nightmares or dreams you had in the past. But if you constantly live in the future, you're never going to be happy, because you're either hoping to get the ideal outcome or praying that you don't. So living in the present is the most important thing.
But
And yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it sounds very vast. You know, what does it mean to live in the present? What does it mean to appreciate the moment? I think it's more of a conscious effort to not focus on the past or future than it is to focus on the present. It's about understanding that your goals are your goals. The future will happen as a result of your current actions, and the past has happened and it's beyond you. And that only will result in you living in the present. I feel that we live in such fast times, you know, such impulsive, such attention demanding times, that we often forget that this second, the moment, you remember the moment I just said this second, that's past, it's never coming again. Remember the moment you had your 8th birthday? You remember the moment that your dad told you he was proud of you? That's never going to happen again. So those things we have to appreciate. Those things we should appreciate, and we should. In saying that, right, I'm kind of being a bit contradictory, because when I say you live in the moment, you appreciate that specific moment. Looking back on it, like for me, one of the biggest moments that I had in my life was the moment that my dad told me he was proud of me. By living in the present, I appreciated that moment a lot, but I look back at it as one of my fondest moments. Living in the present does not mean completely disregarding your past or your future. It means appreciating that this moment is truly unique. It is a result of the things that have happened and the precursor to the things that will. So it might be a bit of a vast definition, but it's one that I hold very, very dear to my heart.
No, that's actually quite a good explanation. I don't think there's anything else to add to that, to be honest. As in, the one thing that is a bit of a... I don't typically tend to look at the past. I don't regret anything.
Right, me either.
I think the one thing that I regret would probably just be not spending more time with family. Because that was a hard lesson when my dad passed back in 2017.
Your dad passed away?
So,
I'm sorry to hear that, man.
But it was one of, again, you take from it the experience
That's
that
true.
you go through, and you end up growing into another person.
That's
so I'm not saying that experience alone puts you ahead. So mentally, that I don't worry about stupid stuff, man.
Of course, because then you start to understand. I mean, when someone so close passes, I'm sure that completely changes your life.
But even to the small stuff, like
Yeah.
for example, I break something, like my phone fell and I broke the screen. Fuck it, buy a new one or just
Buy a new
replace
one,
the
yeah.
screen.
Yeah.
It's something that can be replaced.
And it's something that happens to everyone millions of times every single day. So
Like I had an incident, or I don't know. Fuck it, you just whatever. Everything can be fixed. Like last week, I did a video about time wasted. That's the only thing you can't get back. Apart from that, you can fix or change or
Anything.
adapt or
anything. That's true. Very good point.
so. And that experience itself teaches you to be appreciative of the present moment. But still, it's still
Yeah.
such a difficult thing to do.
I'm sure. No, and the thing is, most people, and I say this with surety, most people have no idea how valuable the present is, because, and I'm sometimes I fall under this camp as well. Sometimes I'm guilty of not appreciating the present moment, because when you spend, again, this is just one example of many, but when you spend hours at a time consuming stupid content on TikTok or Instagram or wherever, or I don't know, anything. I'd rather fold clothes or wash dishes, because at least I'm doing something.
I'd listen to a
I will
podcast.
see, or listen to a podcast, this one specifically,
Listen to the,
or do something that has an actual return or value. Man, we live in a world now where being in the present moment is so much less meaningful than it used to be back then. Like one example that I've recently had a discussion about this with my friend is, as soon as I cook something and I'm about to eat it, I have this compulsion, this need to want to watch something on my iPad. Do you agree? Okay, cool.
or listen to a podcast.
Or listen to this podcast. But in doing that, in having the conscious realization that I am wholly dependent on enjoying my meal, if I watch something while I do eat it,
Distracts you.
that made me realize, it made me think back now. I'm sure I'll get a bit of flack for this, like people who might think I'm a bit too, romantic or whatever.
Who cares?
But 60 years ago,
Uh-huh.
before all of this stuff existed, before there was social media, before there was YouTube, before screens were a thing, you had to sit on a dinner table across someone that you love, enjoying a meal, looking at each other, stuff your mouths full with pasta or whatever they ate back in the day, and love it. And you had to. There was no other option, because if you didn't, then that would just be boring.
That's true.
So I feel now that we are the most connected, we are the least connected, because we have all these facilities, all these attachments, all these accessories to our lives that take away from the purity and reality of our lives. And it's honestly, I feel it's a shame that we have to conform. I feel guilty of conforming to it myself. It is the natural progression of the world. It's not something that I can change. It's not something that I will even try to change, because it's much bigger than me. It's just about adapting to it and kind of making your way around it. But I can't help but wish that we lived in a time where connections were much more meaningful sometimes, because I do feel that they were.
I think that's the biggest thing. Like nowadays, when you go to a restaurant, everyone's on their phone.
You look at couples at a restaurant, man, and it actually puts me off from meeting anyone new, because I'm like, imagine I'm this bro right here.
I'm gonna be honest. I used
Who's
to do
that?
it as well at points, but then I started to be aware of
Ask you
it,
for that Jameson again.
and
You need to catch up, bro.
man, I'm already feeling it in my head. Like, I'm a light drinker, so
Same.
so like I used to do it, to be honest, as well. But then
On
I
your
was
phone during a date, yeah.
not date, even with my ex-partner, but there were times where she would tell me, listen,
Get off your phone.
get off your phone.
Yeah.
And then I would yeah, you're right, I should.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah,
though
yeah.
sometimes I'm
Shush.
like, I was actually working or doing something like that, but like I wasn't physically present. And that was one of my biggest flaws, being physically present. My mind is always thinking, yeah. Like I wake up, okay, like my mind is already racing at 60.
Okay. What do you think about first thing in the morning? This? Lately I've fallen into the trap, man. I actually feel kind of guilty about this. So you see all these gurus online that give you like the best morning routine, the $1 million morning
Bullshit.
routine. And they say that you have to do X, Y, Z for you to have an excellent day. And I've fallen into the trap of creating this false narrative in my head that there is a perfect morning routine, that there is something that should work for me. And I've experimented for months on end trying to find it. Like a tip, I've woken up, I've actually dangled a skipping rope from the the lamp that hangs over my bed. Just so I wake up, I hit my head on it and I have to skip rope. I've put dumbbells next to my bed just so that every time I wake up, I hit my toe on them and I have to like work out a bit.
Did you read the book Atomic Habits?
I have, but I forgot it.
Because I have a feeling that you're just talking about the book.
And it's just this pushing myself into someone else's narrative that has brought me on this morning. This morning is like lately, right? I've had this kind of guilt-ridden morning. It's not always, but sometimes it happens. So most of the times I have a solid morning routine. I wake up. The first thing I do is wash my face. So I'm up. I brush my teeth. I make my bed. I make breakfast. I then do pull-ups, push-ups, dips, and some curls, just a basic 10-minute workout.
That's good.
And then I read or write for about 10-20 minutes, and then I head off to whatever meeting or work I have to do. But there are some days when I wake up late, or when I set an alarm for earlier than it's realistic. So let's say I sleep at 1 and I set an alarm for 6:30. And I wake up at 6:30. And all of my alarms are on my Alexa. So I'm like, Alexa, stop. Alexa, shut up. It's like 6 alarms on my Alexa. And I swear you should be a fly on the wall in my room in the morning, just conversing with Alexa, just trying to tell her to shut the hell up. And throughout the hours of 6:30 and 8, I'm just filling myself with this, first of all, anger, because Alexa is annoying as hell. And second, it's this guilt, because like, why did you set an alarm at 6, 6:35, 6:40, 6:45, 6:50, 6:55, all the way up till 8, if you weren't going to wake up in the first place? So, this glorifying this whole morning routine and
I have it the other way.
Tell me.
Because I'm a very
Enlighten me.
I'm a big morning person.
Oh, we would not get along, bro.
I'm a very big morning person, man.
Tell me, what's your morning routine like?
So depends. Like typically, it's wake up, switch on the kettle, weigh myself.
Weigh yourself.
Yes,
That's
because I'm cutting right now.
I see. Okay.
So I'm on a
I
diet.
see.
Then I have the daily laws. It's a book where you have a law every day. It's quite interesting. I do that. I read that while drinking my coffee. I'm a big coffee guy, so I do filter coffee
I'm a tea guy.
properly. And then I started recently a gratitude journal.
Okay. 3
Like,
things?
As much as I want
general.
to. I try to list as many as possible.
What are you grateful for in the morning? Give me today's.
Good coffee, man. I'm always grateful for a nice cup of coffee.
Daily
Not gonna lie, man.
Nice.
It.
Will you brew your own?
I brew my own.
Fair enough.
Like with grind.
You're grateful for the capacity to
grinding
brew your own
it.
coffee.
No, it's a blessing from
Fair.
above. The smell of coffee the beans release when you grind them.
No,
So
I'm on that classic Nescafe shit. No,
no,
not
man,
great.
fuck that stuff.
Not great.
No.
Not great.
So then I try to stay off my phone as much as possible. Typically, you always end up. And then obviously shower. I always need a shower in the morning.
Cold?
No. I used to do it. There was a time where I used to do it,
I do it.
but fuck stuff.
You know what? You know what?
No.
When I do that cold shower in the morning, I always have this moment when you're butt naked in front of the shower, like under the shower, like fearing the power of the shower. And you have this few moments of angst and anxiety. We're looking at it like, should I do it today? But then you're like, why shouldn't you do it today? They're like, but why should you do it today? You know, it's like the devil and the angel on your shoulder trying to fight each other.
Speaking of this, I recall a very exquisite experience. So I was doing this cold shower thing back when I moved to Germany. And I used to have a cold shower here, and it was bad. But then the first day I moved there, I was in the gym, like at 7:30 in the
warm up.
morning. And I was like, okay, like typically it was like a routine for me where to have a cold shower, and I put the tap on the cold in the gym in Germany. But I failed to realize that the cold there is very different than the cold here.
I can imagine. Man.
And it was September, so
freezing,
the cold
bro.
here, the cold here was cold, refreshing cold.
Not -6 cold.
There was like
Christ, man.
it was so bad that I slipped.
Voila.
I slipped in the shower.
Thank the
It
lucky
was
stars you
so
breakdancing, bro.
bad, man.
Cold engine.
That was
I couldn't
cold.
even like that. That's a
That's
good
when I quit.
observation. That's when you quit. And not for me. Nice.
Screw this stuff.
Never again.
I'll stick to other habits, man. Like
Fair,
there's.
fair. So what are some daily positive habits that you think have helped you to kind of be better?
I used to do meditation. I need to get back to it, man.
I never could do it. My brain's too restless to do meditation. I've tried a few times. You know what's really good? My friend Andrew, shout out my friend Andrew. Andrew suggested the Wim Hof breathing method.
I've never tried it.
Bro,
Apparently, it's
life
really good.
changer.
I need to. Try
I do it almost every day,
Really?
and I feel guilty when I don't. It's so sick. But don't do it in the morning as soon as you wake up, especially not in bed, because you will sleep in your bed, I guarantee it. But it's good to do either in the middle of the day or when you're winding down at night.
Okay.
It's super good. And I'm so used to his voice now, I can recite the whole 10-minute, 12-minute thing probably by heart.
I think that's something that I could try and do.
Yeah, go for
The
it.
one thing now I started, for example, switching my phone to black and white throughout the day.
I haven't done that. I like colors.
Yes, but that's the point. Makes
Yeah.
you use your phone less.
True.
Because I've been trying to reduce my screen time.
Same. Something that I found that works is I put the widget of the screen time front and center on the first homepage, so that I know consciously every time I open my phone how many hours or minutes I've spent on the thing. I've also deleted Instagram and TikTok, which has been a game changer for me.
I have 2 phones, so that would be...
Yeah.
I
No,
need
I have
to
one,
delete it.
and if I had another, I'd probably eat it or chuck it somewhere. Because no, man, I couldn't. This phone is both the most powerful tool we have in our hands and probably the most detrimental one for our future. Because honestly, man, it's a time killer, and that goes all the way from waking up in the morning and just getting that first dopamine hit to seeing couples at restaurants just looking at their phones all the time. Honestly, man, I've heard people say that it's underrated, but I personally feel that it's so overrated. If I could go my entire life with a Nokia 3310, the type that would stop a bullet and not have a screen, I would. Because it takes up so much time in my day. I would much rather stick to like the handheld laptop or iPad or whatever for my productivity and purely use the phone as a communication device. Because I urge anyone listening to this to take a look at their screen time over the past few weeks.
It's probably over 6
It's
hours.
probably over 6. I mean, you can't generalize, but for me, a few weeks ago, it was. Before I deleted Instagram and TikTok, the amount of hours that I would spend on end, and it wouldn't just be a straight 1 hour or 2 hour binge. It would be a few minutes in the day.
And
But
you end up scrolling.
You end up scrolling, but the algorithm is too good.
An
it's
app
too
blocker,
good.
an app blocker is actually really
I
good.
never used one of those. I heard of Opal, which I've heard is good, but it's also expensive. I haven't really paid for it.
Samsung has this feature
I've heard.
where you just put it and it just locks out the apps.
You're an Android guy?
I have both.
I have both. It's the best of both worlds. Hannah Montana.
No, but like, let me check. I mean, probably it goes into quite. I mean, I think right now it's reduced my screen time, but where is it? Screen.
Is that still your first glass?
No, it's my second or
Second.
third. Screen time. Let's see. Today.
So
it's
what do you
not-
think of the Jameson?
I like it. It's not the
Good.
best, but I like it.
Okay, fair enough.
It's quite a nice one. So it's 2 hours 20 minutes today.
2 hours 20. Let me check mine.
So it's not as bad, but
How's my phone?
sometimes, man, it even goes up to 3-4 hours.
Today I am at 2 hours and 5 minutes.
That's not bad.
That's decent. It's not too bad. It's not too
So
bad.
like for me, it's the one thing is eating clean. Like one thing
Okay.
that really changed everything for me. These last 2 weeks, I switched carnivore.
Just meat.
Meat, eggs, cheese, anything
Solid. Anything meat related.
animal
That's derived from a
related.
meat having animal.
So I cut out sugars, I cut out carbohydrates, fruits, everything.
Define like bread, no pasta.
Everything. If it doesn't come from an animal, you don't eat it. So even cooking, you cook in butter, not oil.
Okay.
Bro.
The carnivore diet. So no pasta. Yeah, and the thing is, my dad sometimes cooks. So my dad lives in Gozo. My whole family lives in Gozo. So my dad, although I don't live there, he cooks as if I am there, which is so sweet. I love it. And every time he cooks something for the whole family, he cooks for me as well. And then he just, foils up a portion and gives it to me at the end of the week. So I have this kind of cheat code that I have like cannelloni or some timpana a day,
But
And it's easy, but the fact that it's easy is probably not great. But again, it's amazing food.
I can't deny that. I mean, I'm pretty sure that it's amazing food, but it affects your productivity.
I'm sure.
Since I've cut out the carbohydrate, there's no spike in energy. It's just a constant line. I'm sometimes working from 6 a.m. till 11 p.m. straight, just going to the gym and everything, and I'm still focused at 10 p.m.
Could not be me. I haven't had a day like that in months.
I have not had that in months as well. And this diet flipped the script. You don't feel the
slope.
The slope. You don't feel. It's amazing. You feel better. Like you feel more focused.
I'll take that into consideration.
But you need to try it for a longer period. So it's also because it's there to fight your inflammation. Exactly. So it's a process. Yes, some people might say whatever. Yeah, it's unhealthy and this kind of stuff.
Right.
But even Jordan Peterson, he's on carnivore.
I know, he just eats beef.
Joe Rogan as well. Like
Joe
there's
Rogan
a lot of
remind me, he eats
everything.
Deer, venison
but you can eat meat. It's meat. You can eat that.
True. Okay.
And it's impressive. It's really, really impressive. And I've lost 1.5 kilos in the last 2 weeks of just fat.
Solid. Nice.
And I felt better. And that is the most important thing.
Yeah, feeling better, working better, doing more good work, not just doing more.
And that's the thing, like, I don't know if you know him, Luke Belmar.
Nope.
So he speaks quite like wisdom stuff, and I like the guy because of this. And he talks about, like, the thing is, like, if you have a Ferrari and you give it shitty, dirty fuel, is it gonna run at the same performance?
Probably not.
You'd probably be faster in a Fiat Punto with really clean fuel and a very well serviced engine because of using optimal fuel.
True. Needs an oil change every now and then. True that.
And we neglect taking care of our body.
Yeah, I think so. Lately, the biggest thing for me has been consistently working out. I do it every day. In fact, I'm training for an obstacle course at the end of May, which I'm excited for.
Good luck.
But the consistency, like I said earlier, is a big challenge for me because I get distracted so easily.
Just fits. Once you do it long enough, it just becomes part of. For me, I don't
days. According to Atomic Habits, it's 21 days. 21
no, I think
days
it's even longer.
Probably longer.
I think so.
Yeah, I'm saying how long it takes for you to actually develop a habit.
I think even longer, to be honest.
Longer than that?
I mean, now fitness, I've been doing it for years, so it's
right.
It's quite easy for me. It's part of my life, part of my identity at this stage. So I think the biggest thing that because, like, there's a thing I think the biggest challenge as an entrepreneur, if you use this word, is also balancing like staying in, getting in, putting in the work, and going out, or like meeting people and this kind of stuff. And this is one of the things that is we revert back to what we were talking about also on the date stuff. It relates to this as well. It's like sometimes when you end up going out with friends, you end up at the end of the night, you say, screw it, I should have just stayed in and got 2-3 hours of work done.
How's that?
And then if you don't go out, you're watching everyone on Instagram like
FOMO. Yeah, I know.
So it's finding balance, man. It's so difficult.
This conversation took a bit of a personal turn, bro. I appreciate it. It's we spoke on some stuff I hadn't like touched on in a while.
To be honest, we didn't even.
In a while. Yeah, I was about to ask. We should probably divert back to the questions.
We might probably just go back to and record a proper business podcast because this is
eventually nice though. That was a good conversation so far.
So it's like that's the thing. You know what I do, and probably those who follow me on Instagram could relate to this. I'd go in sprints.
Sprints?
So, for example, since I flew to Malaysia back in February, I've just been on a sprint. So when I'm here in Malta, I try to get as much work as possible.
Right.
Not saying that I don't go out and this kind of stuff, but I limit that. I limit staying out late. I limit like going out and this kind of stuff. So now, for example, I have a week at the end of this month where I'm going to this conference, and then I'm flying to Frankfurt again because meeting some friends there,
Right.
and we go out, we party, we enjoy it. That gives me a break, and it refreshes the perspective, refreshes the body, and you meet people, you hang out with people, old
The
friends.
balance, the balance is important.
Then I come back, sprint again till my next vacation. Because for me, that is where I
Sprints.
feel. So I think it's you burn out. Not gonna.
Yeah,
lie.
you burn out. I'm not a fan of that, to be honest.
Not burnout.
I have
but
a bit of a different philosophy when it comes to the workload. See, I am a strong advocate for doing everything that you should be doing within work hours, and those work hours should be predetermined. So you should time block from the morning to the afternoon to the evening.
you can. But how can I? If I get a quote request at 9 p.m.
Just respond it tomorrow. If you get a quote request at 9 p.m., first of all, if they send a quote request at 9 p.m., that's not office hours. As in now, this is coming from a guy who's responded to quote requests at 3:30 in the morning.
But my business doesn't run on office hours. Remember that.
I know. So when you get a quote request at 9 p.m., are you insinuating that that person is on office hours time because they're in a different time zone? They're in Malta hours.
No, not just. I get requests from abroad as well.
From abroad as well. So realistically, and I know that it's probably not going to feel great to delay a response, but once you scale, which eventually you will, I'm sure, you have to be able to let go some of the expediency and the perfectionism that you hold so dear to your heart. And now I'm saying this as a person who's still holding it dear to my heart, and I've been told this advice from someone else, that you need to prioritize yourself as well, in the sense of, if you have time blocks, if you have blocks for the first 3 hours of the day that are specified for reach outs, and then you have noon specified for reach ins, keeping up with customer service, and then you have the afternoon that's specific to something else, I don't know what exactly it is. Keeping that is something I have never managed to do. So I'm suggesting something to you that I have never managed to do, but I know for a fact that it works for other people, because these people are so much farther ahead than we are. Of course, at the beginning you have to wear all the hats. At the beginning you have to do your utmost. But I think that both me and you will eventually have to come to a point where, like you said, you oil the Ferrari. You have to prioritize the self. Because if the self isn't operating at its optimum capacity, then eventually it all comes crashing down.
I think I found other ways to do that, to be honest.
Faqa.
For example, Sundays in the mornings, I try to leave them for myself
Okay.
with just me, the bike, and my Kindle. I'm not saying that
You read while you ride?
no, don't do that. No,
Lesa, listen up. We have a repeat offender here.
Go slow,
bro.
Go slow,
Dick.
but like, I think when I work late, I try to then, for example, because man, the last few weeks, there's no weekends, there's no.
The days like fused together, man. I know.
Bro, I'm not saying that it's the same routine, because on Saturday I tend to take it easy, but I'm still getting work in the afternoon. On Sunday,
Relax.
I'm still recording videos, editing videos, doing shorts and this kind of stuff. It's about, I think, mixing it up and finding time throughout. But I think if I take time through in the evening for a request that came in, I try to then compensate for it some other time.
That's fair. No, I think that's good. I mean, to be honest, what I just told you was in a way hypocritical, because I am also guilty of getting a request at 10 p.m. and responding at 10:03. So you have to also, especially at this early stages, show that you mean business, show that you're willing to go the extra mile to respond to a message, even though it's after office hours. And I think that's what sets us apart. The fact that we're willing and able to do it is what makes us different from massive companies who purely work within the parameters of a massive company.
And also, for example, in my industry, I mean, if someone messages me at 9 p.m., he's stuck somewhere, he just wants to get out, he just needs a jet.
Helping him will pay dividends back in the long run.
And even the fact that I mean, yes, the requests go slower. It's a 24/7 job.
True.
I mean, then if the request comes in at 2 a.m. in the morning and I'm asleep and I didn't hear the phone, it's one thing. But
Ecco.
if I'm at night, it's 9 p.m. and screw it, like I have to get it done.
Yeah.
But I think like that's also because a lot of people in this world, for example, want it but don't want it hard enough. They want to build their business, but they don't want to lose their Friday, Saturday nights out. But those
Something's
Friday,
got to
Saturday
give.
nights out destroy your weekend.
Yeah. And probably the Monday and Tuesday as well.
So it's those
No,
things.
no, you have to, something's got to give. I mean, we live in a world where you lose some and you win some. You give some and you get some.
Have you lost friends because of this?
Have I lost friends because of this? No, though. I've
Really?
actually been very lucky to
You're
surround
blessed.
myself with the right people. I think the people that I held dear to my heart as soon as this happened are still there. In fact, I'd like to say I've gained friends since I've started this. It could be because of my approach. It could be because I'm very welcoming to people who fall in line within my values. But I'm also very self-correcting in the sense that I don't allow people who don't fall within my values and principles and my trajectory to enter my life and become a part of it. And that's not even a conscious effort. So if someone is not in line with what I have in mind, if someone is not exactly aligned with my principles and values and goals and whatnot, chances are I wouldn't even allow myself to have a second conversation with them. And it's not a conscious effort. It's literally just a matter of I won't make the time of day. So that itself is a filtering process which only leaves me with the best of the best, which are the friends that I hold dear to my heart today and the people who will eventually become part of my life. So
That's the one thing that I've started to kind of like work on, because I noticed that there was a lot of friendships that I was always the one reaching out.
I don't do much of that. I actually tend to forget people exist.
No, it was the opposite. I'm always the one initiating. Let's meet. And then I started to realize when you're put in as a second option, kind of like it's better to just
That's true.
stop investing your time into it and use that time into either yourself learning something else or this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's important to prioritize what you are to that person's life. When I say I forget people exist, I mean it in like the most, you know,
I
the
forget to
best
reply
way
as
possible.
well.
I forget to reply to people. I often have messages on Instagram or Messenger that are like 3 weeks old. But when the time comes to actually meet that person, of course, you're back in it. And that's how you know that you're good friends. Some of the best friends I have are the people who I don't speak to for months, and then you have a conversation and it's like you never left.
I have some friends like that.
Which are
But
the jewels of our lives. You know?
almost all my friends, like my closest friends, live abroad.
Lalo. That's
Almost.
unfortunate.
And not just Maltese, because to be honest, I have my really, really close friends here in Malta, but to be honest, you'd count them very quickly. But the majority of my friends, I think I have more friends abroad than
here.
in fact, like I always surprise a particular friend always tells me, I'm visiting this new city. Oh yeah, I'm meeting that guy or that or her or him or that group. Yeah, I met those when I was in Germany, or I'm going to another place and I'm like, yeah, I'm meeting this guy.
Right.
I always have friends scattered all over.
Nice.
And that's a blessing, to be honest.
Of course, man. I mean,
Because different people bring different
trades, different like pieces to the
backgrounds.
puzzle in your life, for sure. I still have people who I met during my time in the US that still very, very close to me. Like Nico, which is the guy that I lived with while I was there for 6 months. We lived in the same dorm room, we had the same classes, we went to the same places. It was basically inseparable for 6 months. Still one of my best friends that I have to this day. We don't speak every day. No, I'm done. Actually, I'll partake. Last one though. Promise.
You want water?
We'll have some water. So no, these people that you meet, especially during foreign experiences, never count them out, because you never know what might happen. Like I have one person who I met in the US who now happens to work for an advisory company, who now happens to need some happy pots for their workplace, and that might turn out to be like a 6,000 unit order.
That's nice.
Beyond that, of course, beyond the professional sense, I don't want to sound like the vain guy who just wants to make sales, but of course you get to meet people in their hometowns. They get to meet you as soon as they come here. So creating these connections and partnerships and friendships as soon as you go abroad is essential. I even know friends who, a lot of my friends are in the music scene, so I have a lot of my friends who are DJs. George, my best friend, is a DJ who frequently travels but also hosts DJs here. And he tells me that the importance of harnessing these communications and these friendships that you have is excellent for networking. Like, he's gotten, if not gigs, he's gotten interest from gigs abroad purely by speaking to someone who has come here.
George sounds like he needs a private jet sometime soon.
George, I think you should speak to my friend Andrea here.
You know who to pick up.
Take a jet.
But when I used to do music, I realized the importance of that.
Yeah. Super important.
And that's like your network. Your network is your net worth. And that is one of the biggest lessons.
You should get that tattooed, bro.
Actually, I will
Chest
never
piece.
get a tattoo, man.
You've never gotten a tattoo?
I'm scared of
Way.
needles. So
You're scared of needles?
No.
What if I knocked you out?
No.
No?
So that's the one of the lessons that I've learned the most throughout the last few years.
Right.
It's not about the money you have.
It's about the people.
You can be one of the wealthiest people, but if you're in trouble or in
if you're alone, you're no one. That's true. That's true.
And you know what? When I started to realize that, because I'm all about providing value to people. And for example, I used to get these calls. Can you help me this? Like, I'm going here. Do you know someone at the airport? Do you know this? Do you know him? Do you know her? Like, what can I do? And I used to be sometimes calling different people around and like sorting out some small stuff, you know?
Even if it wasn't your domain, you just want to help those people.
And obviously, my scene is the aviation industry, so... And that, like, this, not feeling you get, but you feel like, wow, I could actually provide value to this person.
Even if it's not in line with what you do, I feel that some of the most like emotionally enriching moments I've had is when I've helped someone. Especially when I didn't have to.
And that's like why I do YouTube. It's to hopefully inspire people.
Yeah.
Kind of like, probably there are people laughing at my content.
I'm sure. But hey, they laughed. So that's enough.
Or like people thinking that my content is cringe.
That might even be the case.
That could be the case.
Anyone's content could be cringe, but it's more than that person would have done.
As Alex Hormozy says, like, so what?
So what? I think a lot of people more than Alex Hormozy have said that, but so what?
So what?
So what? I think Pink said that back in the day.
Who? Pink.
Pink, bro, you don't remember Pink?
The musician.
So what?
Okay.
Wait, come on.
I wasn't.
No, that was a while ago, bro. That was a while ago.
She changed, huh?
She changed?
She's
purple now? That was weak. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
We're gonna cut this out.
We're gonna go. No, we won't. No, we won't.
But
I have an interjection to make.
What's that?
So, first of all, the interjection, which means I'm gonna interject. First of all, this is my favorite podcast I've ever been on because it's such a free-flowing conversation.
Yeah.
Second, is there anything specific on that notepad there that's worth mentioning beyond this personal conversation? I absolutely love this personal conversation, but I really would like to know what you wrote down in hopes of getting a more meaningful kind of vibe to the conversation going.
To be honest, we touched base
pretty
on
much all the points, I
all
think.
points.
Yeah.
I mean, qualities you think an entrepreneur should have, setbacks, failures, how you overcome them. And
tell me about it yourself first. What do you think are the qualities an entrepreneur should have?
I know this very clearly. You need to be a persistent motherfucker. That's for sure. You need to be really, really persistent in yourself.
You heard it here, folks.
If not anything else. Disciplined. I don't run on motivation, man.
True.
I run on discipline.
Motivation is a finite resource.
You need to have confidence. Don't be cocky, but you need confidence.
Yeah, arrogance is another thing, but confidence is important. I think I probably would have gotten here without the confidence. And the confidence comes from knowing what you're doing, but also having that, belief in yourself. How has your confidence improved since your entrepreneurial journey? And what do you think have been the biggest kind of, things that have ticked your confidence?
Fitness. Really pushed my confidence. Yeah. I mean,
Go to the gym,
looking good and feeling good about yourself already sets you up to quite a good level.
True.
And I've noticed this, like even when I walk into, last Sunday I had a business meeting with a potential client, for example, and actually it was rather like a conversation where
Right.
we just were talking about what we're doing and this kind of stuff. And you need to carry yourself with a certain type of confidence where, listen, I know my stuff. For example, because if you are, when you are talking about your business and what you're doing, if you don't talk about it with a certain type of confidence, the other guy is going to doubt.
Yep.
Because
That's
if you
true.
don't kind of trust what you're doing, then how can I trust you?
Yep.
So that's one key element to business, confidence, and also feeling good about yourself. That's very important. So fitness, I believe, puts you into quite a good position. And then mental health.
For me, I think I would say it's probably adaptability. I think it's the ability to navigate different circumstances in a way which seems effortless. You know, effortlessness is commonly overlooked. I mean, a lot of people nowadays would look at, you know, successful entrepreneurs or business people and say, "Oh, you made it look so easy." It was never that easy. No, and that's not to say I'm a successful entrepreneur quite yet. I mean, speaking of which, something we haven't touched on quite yet is imposter syndrome, which I know you sent me earlier.
Yeah.
So maybe you should kind of talk on that before we go. But the concept of making things look easy is easier said than done.
But you only look, when I'm looking into your life, I only see things from the outside.
I thought,
From
and
the
you only
posts
see
you see.
things from the posts you see on social media, from the things that I allow you to see, from the things that you allow me to see. I mean, at the end of the day, no one is spending all of their time with the other person, so it would be very difficult, practically impossible for them to know exactly what's going on in your life. The act of making things look easy is more so a matter of perspective than it is a matter of doing it yourself. I think there's a lot of social media that plays into this thing. For sense, of course, on social media we're all inclined to post our best moments. No, very few people would post themselves crying or going through a failure or doing this or that somehow negative or impacts their image in a negative way. But really and truly, there's probably a lot more neutral / negative moments than there are positive ones, and I'd hope that there are more positive ones than there are negative ones, but we only see what people allow us to see. So holding ourselves up to that standard is not realistic, really and truly. So I'll ask you a question. In your time so far, I'm sure that you've been inspired by a few people. I know that you read certain books, which means you're inspired by certain authors. I know that you follow certain few influencers or entrepreneurs who you might find inspiring. What exactly drives you to one specific or a few specific people, and how has seeing their failures and successes impacted you in life?
I think there's one person that comes to mind when you say this. Do you know Imangadzi?
Of course. I don't follow them, but I know them. For me, it's Stephen Bartlett.
I've know who Stephen is, but I don't know his details.
Right.
It's these guys prove that everything is possible. That you can come from nothing and make it in life. So the value that gives you, it gives you the belief that if he made it,
I can.
I can. And watch me. So, and for example, like people like Imangadzi, yes, I know people might hate on him or do his way of selling and making money. That's up to you to make of. But the guy vlogged his entire life from the days where
From
he
like
would open up
15,
a cupboard and
No.
it would fall literally in
Yeah.
collapse. So the guy really came from nothing, and I'm blessed enough to even have more than that right now. So I think it's the value, like the failures. I like learning from different people, so obviously, but I always prefer to fail myself,
Fail yourself. Fail fast and hard.
because I can watch a YouTube video on you telling me how you failed, but I might still go and do
Yeah.
the same shit that made you fail. but I would learn more by failing myself than
And feeling the feelings that are associated with that
Yeah.
failure. I understand that. I
so
understand that.
so then again, like, I think it is relating to your question, no?
Definitely.
I
for
did
sure.
answer that.
Yeah.
So I think it's more like being inspired by other people. Other people might say you're comparing yourself, but
Yeah.
comparison can be used as a push.
It can be used as a push, but there's this age-old saying that comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes and
that
no.
by comparing yourself to someone else, then you're automatically stealing the joy away from what could be. But I do believe that comparing yourself to someone who is worse is a great way of making yourself feel better. Comparing yourself to someone who is better is a great way of making yourself either feel worse or pushing yourself to be better. It's all about perspective. It's all about perspective. I mean, I surround myself with people who are more successful than I am because eventually I want to be in their place, not because I want to feel jealous and make that fuel my next steps. I surround myself with people who are richer or smarter or more in an advanced level than I am, because I hope to absorb some of what they have been doing and continue to do, and hopefully do it myself. Of course, jealousy sometimes fuels excellence, but that's on a very rare occasion and sometimes breeds the worst of people. So, reality is, if you don't have good values, every step you take will eventually create a worse you and a worse world, and no one wants that.
I have a very good question that came to mind.
Fa-
What's your why?
What's my why? I think my why is, probably heard this before, so it might sound cliche, but then I might go on a bit of a tangent. Of course, I want to be happy,
But what's happiness?
but I want to make other people happy as well.
Can you
I-
define happiness?
Happiness to me is the feeling of both being appreciated and appreciative, the feeling of being curious and satisfying that curiosity. It is the feeling of creation, because I do feel happy when I create. It's the feeling of satisfaction, like when you bite into a burger or visit a new place or embrace someone that you love. But happiness in a more general term, in a more long-lasting term, is peace, I think. For me, happiness is the freedom to not have to worry. It's the freedom of being able to spend time and effort with the ones that you love, and being able to focus on the passions that make you a better you and make the world a better world. I think happiness is something that we should all be able to enjoy, and anything that takes away from that is something I don't want to have anything to do with. Happiness for me is the only thing we should strive towards, both our own happiness as well as the happiness of others. If I am not happy, then everything that I do will probably not result in both my own nor anyone else's happiness. And if anyone else isn't happy, then the world isn't a happier place. So my ethos, both in the personal and professional sense, very much revolves around happiness, in the sense that everything that I do has to somehow either contribute to my own or anyone else's happiness. For me, happiness is the most important thing. What about you?
It's funny because I think I am the happiest when I am the most active and like the most on the go. I think that gives me happiness. That gives me fulfillment right now. Maybe, but I've talked about this on another YouTube video, and I've actually, it was one of the questions, if I can find it. It's like, it goes into like what is actually like, where is it? It's basically the formula of life, because happiness is an emotion. And how can you appreciate happiness without going through all the struggles before?
You can't. That goes exactly back to the point we made earlier. Yeah.
So that's exactly, it's an emotion like sadness. Without dark, you will never be able to appreciate the light.
True.
So all this pain that you go through when you go through all these failures will then make you appreciate your success even more. That's why, as you said, like those that were given the wealth never make it or never appreciate it,
That's true.
because they never experienced the tough moments.
And even if they do, I feel that they would be less receptive to them.
Probably.
I think the fact that we are.
Is this the recording?
I think so. Are you still recording, camera? I'd like to think so. We'll see. What time is it though? How long has this been running?
What time did we start it?
I have no clue, bro.
I think about 5.
It's 6:37 at the moment.
Not too bad.
We got some time. Tie up.
Hopefully till the card runs out.
Imagine we haven't been recording all the whole time.
No, it's recording. No, but like it's a very. I feel like sometimes it's a loophole. This question, but it's
Which
important.
question? Remind me.
Like happiness. What's happiness?
What
Or
is
what
happiness?
is successful? Because if I had to ask you, this question evolved from what is your why. So why are you doing what you are doing? Why do you want to succeed? And what is success for you?
If I was to go back to my most basest reasons for happiness, I would say it's to make my father proud. You know, my dad's always been a very big figure in my life, and his version of success, although might be different to mine, is again, it's relative, but it's always kind of been at the back of my mind to kind of make my father proud, and I feel that everything I do, although is eventually going to be in my benefit, it would be an honor to be able to say that my father is proud of myself, purely because I've looked up to him as such a massive role model in my life, that to have the validation from the person you admire the most is very important to me.
Granted.
So that is probably one thing. As to the other more personal reasons, most adhering to myself, as to what is my why, I would love to leave the world better than I found it. Now, that's a big task for one person to take on, because it seems that as a species, collectively, we've decided to kind of rid the world of all its purities in the few years that we've lived on this land. But I would love to somehow make an impact. You know, I know for a fact that beyond my death, thousands, millions, billions of people will continue to live on, and I don't accept the fact that the world will always get worse. The world has gotten worse purely from a sense of wildlife and state of living. I believe in the past 50 years we've managed to eradicate 70% of our wildlife in a single lifetime. I believe that is reversible. I hope that I can contribute to it, and I pray that those after me will be able to actually reverse it. But my ideal, in an ideal world, I would love to somehow contribute to a better world overall. Now, whether that is making people happy, whether that is creating nature where nature has been killed, whether that is contributing to social good and creating good business and opportunities for people, I just somehow want to leave an impact, a legacy, I guess you could say. Which is, again, easier said than done. But I'm more focused, I must say, I'm more focused on what I can achieve in this lifetime rather than what I will leave behind. In the sense of, I'm not that much focused on legacy than I am on actual implementation of the things I've learned and done in this lifetime. But my why is very much centered on happiness, both my own and other people's. I think we were made not just to exist. You know, we were made to actually enjoy the fruits of our labor, the fruits of our ancestors' labor, and to actually be and live and smile and laugh and enjoy our loved ones. And if I can somehow contribute to that, whether it's through making happy pots or through contributing to social good or through doing whatever, I would love to somehow do it. I'm probably too young to know what my why is, but so far it's pretty clear, and I'm sure it will be clearer as time progresses. What's your why, Andrea?
My why. Obviously, this is as of right now. But my why at the moment, it's to, first of all, with the business, is to provide value. to other people. But I also kind of want my family to and myself to come at a point where live off well, without having to worry about. We don't come from a particularly wealthy background,
Same.
so that breaking the cycle
Yeah.
would
Being
be.
the generational.
And even though my dad's not here right now, it's like it would still, obviously, I'm pretty sure that that would also set him proud. And if I manage to make my family proud or happy, I'm sure that would have made
Yeah.
him happy. So, with regards to YouTube, the why is a bit different. The why is to give value, inspire other people, and hopefully show people that eventually, like Iman did. Iman inspired me, so I'm doing it as well. And realistically, not bragging, but I had a guy come up to me and said, like, thanks to my last few YouTube videos, I actually pushed him to go and make the move and start studying to chase his dream.
Wow, that's beautiful.
So
man.
this guy literally.
Respect.
So I didn't even. It was mind blowing, to be honest, because maybe 50 to 100 people watch my YouTube videos, but
That one guy.
that one guy, I managed to inspire his.
Wow. Beautiful.
So for me, that's.
Eventually, if you have 10,000, you might inspire 5 people or 100 or 50.
Yeah, it's
Who
that's the
knows?
thing, you know. So, and there's this mentality, as you said before, like that, because we're from such a small island, that there's only a certain level that
Ceiling.
we can reach.
Yeah.
No, fuck that stuff, man. I'm going
Fuck
to
the
go
ceiling.
beyond.
Yeah.
If I can, I would reach Iman's level. Why not?
He did it. Why can't we? Yeah. I don't follow really these kind of social influencers. I'm not really a fan of kind of idolizing anyone. Although I'm sure you don't do it in a way which is like, you know, fangirling over that person. But I've never been one to religiously follow a person and derive inspiration from them. Most of my inspiration comes from partly the self, secondly from books, and thirdly from the people closest to me. A lot of it also comes from seeing the success, mostly online, of people who have made it, but I don't follow them so religiously. I think in idolizing someone, you're still kind of falling victim to the fact that they're only posting their best content. In the sense of, I'm sure Iman Gadzhi has a lot of problems that you don't get to see.
100%.
And the same with a bunch of these kind of gurus and mentors that people idolize typically. The fact and the structure in which they do it is the same reason why they sell millions and millions of dollars worth of courses. Because people only see the best, they want to emulate the best, so they purchase to do their best. But realistically, these people are people just like us. They have their own issues, they have their own troubles, they have their own transgressions that only they know what they are, only they go through them, and once you're faced with the same ones or similar ones, you have to figure out a way to go through them yourself. No course will tell you how to go through the worst transgressions
But
of your life.
that's then obviously up to you to filter out
Yeah,
the good
exactly,
and the bad.
exactly.
And
That's
that's
true.
what
That's
I'm blessed to be wise enough to say. Here in this video, he's trying to sell me this course, so screw this.
No, I'm sure there's a lot of value in following these people. I mean, they're mentors for a reason. Today, probably the reason why I don't follow any of these mentors that religiously is because I haven't been exposed to them as much. I mean, I haven't actively sought out an online persona to act as my goal person. I'd rather focus on a person who is much more close to me, like an actual physical person I can interact with on a day-to-day basis.
Do you manage
Okay,
to
and teach me
network with
lessons.
high people here?
Yes, though. It's actually been pretty straightforward for
You
me.
need to teach me some stuff then.
Sure. I mean, it's rather simple. It's just about attending the right events and being able to just go up to a person and say, "Hi, I am me. I do this. Let's talk."
That's my biggest struggles right now here in Malta.
But the sentence I just said, what's so difficult about it?
No, not starting the conversation. That's the easiest thing.
The networking.
Finding the right places.
Stay on top of the events. Stay on top of the events. You have absolutely no issue with confidence. You have no issue with talking to people. I can imagine that if you were up to any event, you'd go up to any person, be it who they may, and say, this is what I am, this is what I offer, let's at least have a coffee to discuss what we can do together. That's not an issue for you. If the issue for you is finding the right event, just stay up to date. Just go on LinkedIn, find the right summits, find the right expos, find the right Sigmas, iGaming Nexts, whatever falls in touch with the industry in which you're in.
That's the one thing.
Enable notifications and just get notified as soon as they post something and move. For me, I feel the most influential and the most effective partnerships I've made have come from expos and summits. So I actually go out, meet people, I offer my services. I almost often go with a prototype. I'm a bit different than you because I have a physical prototype to show. But you meet people, you talk to them. If you're charismatic enough, which you are, you shouldn't have any problem with it. They will, at the very least, entertain your idea of the value you can bring to them. Once you have a foot in the door, then that's a question of your capacity as a salesperson.
I think the most people I've met with regards to business were cigar bars for me.
Cigar bars. Bro, this is a good lead, huh? I swear I will fathom this for the rest of my life.
All high
bars.
net worth individuals, most
You
of
have
them.
to teach me how to smoke a cigar after this. Solid.
Cigar bars normally are full of people of a certain caliber.
Nice. I frequent jazz bars when I'm abroad.
That's something.
Usually I go at about like 9:30, 10 p.m. when people are on their 4th or 5th whiskey.
Also for the woman, huh? There's a certain caliber.
No, I'm not really much of the type of guy who goes scouring for women at jazz bars. Because most of the women at jazz bars are middle-aged, and that's not exactly my type. So,
More
no,
experience.
I go to jazz bars, one, because I love jazz. And to be fair, I've only gone to like 4 jazz bars abroad. But the 3 that I went to purely for fun were awesome. The one that I went to as a kind of business-esque transaction / networking opportunity was because I had already gone to it before, and I had heard from the waitress at the bar that a certain person in a Fortune 500 company would be sitting at that specific table at that specific time. So I was like, I want to come by, pitch my services, show exactly what I have. I came equipped with a pitch deck and a prototype in hand. I just chopped it on the table.
We have to go.
I didn't close the sale, I have to say. That was an ineffective
But you tried.
jazz bar run, but I tried. And next time around, we'll be more
We have
prepared
to.
for
We
it,
have to hit up a jazz bar then, locally.
Done.
We smoke a cigar.
We should teach me how to smoke a cigar. Sounds like a plan.
But like that's the only thing that I've been struggling the most, I think, here in
Networking in the right places.
Malta. In Malta.
But there's so
Abroad, I
many
have
places to
no
go to,
problems, bro.
There's so many places to go to. Like did you go to the EU Startup Summit that was just there last week?
No,
That was a good one. That was probably my best expo so far.
I need to go to Sigma. But you know the problem.
Sigma's a bit overrated, bro.
But for me, there's a lot of private jet clients.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what the problem is? Like these things are so damn expensive, man.
Sigma doubled in price over the past few years.
Like you start throwing 500, there 600, there
and
500.
suddenly
there.
you're out a paycheck. That's it.
Bro,
Yeah, that's true.
this conference in Geneva is going to go in the thousands.
Oof, that's steep. I'm gonna go to one in Cyprus soon. Reflect, end of the month, 30th and 31st.
I'm gonna be in Geneva at that time.
Nice.
So it's like that's the biggest problem, man. Like
Well, you need to go. I mean, now your biggest goal is to make that worth your while.
definitely.
Close the sale, at least one.
And that's like it's also a mentality here. Though. I feel like I hold myself because you stick to even when you're going to coffee shops, you always stick to your usual ones,
Yeah.
which are the comfortable ones.
And where you're less likely to meet new people.
So, for example, I've been hitting up a particular coffee spot. I'll tell you off camera, where there are certain types of people there, and you start noticing the people around you, and like, because the guys that fly private, for example, typically are dressed normally.
You wouldn't notice. Right.
Maybe by their watch.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I'm not one to look, man. I'm not one to notice these things.
No, I'm.
Maybe because I'm not in the market of such an affluent kind of product that you are.
I pick
Just
things
private
up.
jets.
Like
Yeah, I'm not one to
I
notice.
can sniff from the perfume. I can tell that the guy is.
Oh,
male.
way.
I'm serious.
That's impressive. That's impressive.
No, if someone has a particular, for example, scent, because I'm into this stuff.
Right.
If I'm at the airport and I
You
see
smell some Dior Sauvage, you're like,
no, screw
ooh.
Dior, that's a fuckboy scent. man.
That is a fuck boys. Yeah, that's fair.
But like
That's
even the way you dress, it will show.
So what's like a private jet-esque kind of fragrance?
It depends, man. It goes broad, but something
You gotta
of
give me
the
one,
market,
man. You gotta
something
give me
of the
one.
market, something like that's not standard.
Right.
These people are quite.
This
I
is
mean,
you.
I mean,
This is you at the airport lounge.
no, but I'm the same. I like to, for example, buy perfumes that not the average person has.
Bro. I'm the
I
type
don't-
to buy Calvin Klein
No,
at the at the airport duty free
that's my gym
when
perfume.
it's at 25 euros
No,
per
man.
bottle, bro. I really don't like. I'm not the materialistic kind of guy, bro.
It's not materialistic, man. But I found out how much of an impact this thing
The
makes.
smell works.
The smell, the looks.
Okay.
It's not about the brand.
So what I'm hearing is this should be a company expense.
no, but like even
Close sales with some Tom Ford fragrance. Nice.
bro,
Okay.
it's not even
Okay.
about the brands that you, because people think that you have to wear your Gucci shirt.
No, that's not the case.
No,
That's-
man,
that's,
wear
a bit too
something
much.
that is nice fitting,
No, no,
fits you well, you smell well, you have nice shoes, and
the way you
look
present
good.
yourself.
You look good.
No.
You look fresh. You have a fresh haircut. Your beard is trimmed. It makes a big difference. At least in my clientele. If I went last Sunday to meet this guy and I was scruffy, not dressed well, not smelling well, dude.
Maybe he would have gotten the wrong impression.
Yeah, because obviously you're going to set off the
No.
the eyes are.
You wouldn't expect a private jet chartering person to not be as presentable as possible. So yeah, I understand that. I'm in the kind of a different business, which of course maybe gives me a bit of leeway, but I also appreciate the fact that you have to be presentable. Now that's not to say I wear hoodies and t-shirts all the time.
You can wear hoodies and t-shirts
So yeah,
as long as you have,
as long as it stays true to your brand, that's all. That's all that's important. That's true.
and it's true to yourself as well. You have to feel confident in what you're wearing as well.
Yeah.
So
I feel most confident in hoodies and joggers, bro.
Then wear that, and let that
That's
be your
me.
image.
That's just me.
Alex Hormozy goes to
Man,
in tank tops and
wife
shorts. man.
beaters, man. Damn.
So
Classic. Are we still recording?
yeah. So it's
Can you
like
do this?
probably not. No, I can't.
No. My friend told me that. My cousin. Shout out, Matthias.
So
Back to it.
back to it. Yeah, it's like that's the thing. It's about looking presentable. If your image is in hoodies and this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and you're confident when you're wearing that,
True.
then let that be your personal image. I've met people that fly private jets that just go in shorts and a white t-shirt, and then they have an expensive watch.
That's enough. It works. It works. So, do we have any extra points that we have to tick off the list, yo?
Would you have done anything differently?
That I've done anything differently since the start of this journey?
Personal, business, life.
No regrets. I don't think so. As in, I don't think there's any one thing that I would look back at and say, I wish I didn't do that. There are a couple that come to mind, but they're more so on a personal level. And even then, I feel that the impact of them has given me such growth as a person that I wouldn't change them anyways. I don't have any regrets that I would say I would do differently, no. I think both from a personal and professional standpoint, everything I've done has created the person that I am now, and I'm pretty proud of the person I am now. I'm not cocky or arrogant by all means. I know that I have my limitations and my inconsistencies and my inadequacies, but I also know that whatever mistakes I make in the future will definitely lead to growth. So nothing evident comes to mind. I honestly wouldn't change a thing. I have absolutely no regrets about my past. I think everything that I have done and everything that anyone else has ever done has created the present that is now, and there's no more meaningful thing than the present. So
Did
I
you
think-
speak about with your parents about the decision you took today? We
about
don't have to
the-
mention it.
Yeah,
but-
sure. So the decision I took today was to move away from my part-time job in order to focus once again full-time on Happy Pot. I did speak with them about it. I did speak with my dad specifically about it, and he had his reservations. Of course, my dad comes from the era and the age of having a stable job. My father was a police officer, then a firefighter, then he retired, but all across through his journey, he always had some businesses on the side. Firstly, he had an antique selling business, then he had a telecommunications business selling phones, then he had a restaurant, then another restaurant, and throughout, he's always been kind of an inspiration for me. But one thing that's been constant throughout his career was a backup plan. That's something that I would not like to have, because much like we were saying just before the conversation started, as soon as you have a backup plan, you have something to fall back on, which means that you have a safety net. And a safety net in itself gives you
Complacency.
It gives you this feeling of, if I don't make this, something else will fall into place.
Yeah.
And I feel I operate more efficiently and more wholeheartedly when I have this risk, when I have this element of danger, that if I don't make this, then nothing will happen. And in deciding to move away from this kind of part-time gig that I had to fully focus on Happy Pot. Now, that's not to say I wasn't fully focused on Happy Pot, because I was, but now to fully remove all distractions that I had to fully focus on the project that I have at hand right now, I feel is the next step towards making the right moves in the next 3 to 6 months and eventually the next few years. So hopefully we'll eventually look back on this podcast and say that this was the precursor for greatness. And
I'm sure.
and I'm sure my dad will be proud when we look back on this and see the notable steps that created what is in whatever time we'll be looking at this in the future.
I'm pretty sure that right now he thinks you're out of your mind.
Probably, and that's perfectly
My
fine.
mom thinks the same.
I am definitely sure that he thinks I'm out of my mind. And sometimes when I call him, he's like, I'm not gonna butt in. You know, it's kind of your choice. And I know that as soon as he hangs up, he's like, this kid's out of his mind.
The one
That's
thing,
okay.
the one thing that kills me, man, is like going to these family events.
Yeah, and they're like, what are you doing right
What
now?
are you doing? And they're like, I just quit my full-time job. You're like,
Right,
what?
like, you did what, son?
What are you doing? Working on the business, my business.
What business?
Yeah.
It's a private jet business, but you wouldn't understand.
I remember when through COVID,
Yeah.
when I moved from Germany to pursue music, they were like,
Oh,
what
I
the
can imagine that. Bro, music is another level, man. It's like, for me, like when you the first things that come to mind when you say pursuing music is like some guy going in an RV across the desert playing his fucking
Dude,
ukulele
for
or
making
something.
quite
That's
a
it.
very good amount of money in
So
Germany.
just completely quitting and just
Just
going to yep, meow, meow, meow,
ending
meow.
up working a part-time job for 500 euros a month here.
Yeah, that's mad. That's mad. No, but it's important for the fact that it is so unorthodox, the fact that it is so different, and the fact that it is so jarring to people who are so used to safety is exactly what makes it great.
But if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be starting this business.
Exactly.
Because that also made me start my previous business, which then that led me. So things happen for a reason,
They
man.
do have them for a reason.
And everything falls into place eventually.
They do.
So I'm quite grateful that I was crazy enough to take the leap and yeah.
I think on that note, might be a good point to call it a day. Shall
I
we
think
not?
so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Chase your dreams, baby.
I think you should take this as a reminder to what would be the last message that you would say
Last message.
to anyone listening.
I'm gonna let you go first.
Okay, so my opinion would be to wherever and whichever journey you are, if you have a dream that you want to chase, whatever that can be, do it. It's never too late to start. People don't care too much about you. So don't be scared to think what people might think of you. Don't let that set you off. Just keep working. Chase your dream, because at the end of the day, when you're in your deathbed, the only thing that will be there spiritually are your potential, like your potential self that you might not have chased after. It's like there's this quote that goes into like the saddest place is the graveyard, because that's where most of the dreams that did not even something like this. I'm probably saying it incorrectly, but it's the graveyard that contains like
Where dreams die.
where dreams die.
Right.
And it's on your deathbed that you realize what you need to try and reach your fullest potential. Everyone has his own purpose, so for you is to make a change and to leave the world a better place. For me it can be something else. So whatever your purpose, your journey, your inspiration is, go after that, and don't let anyone put you down.
Smart.
I think that's the
Just bouncing off of that, I would say my final message as we close off this podcast is take note of the people who are around you. Take note of the people who wish you the best.
appreciate.
Appreciate the people who actually push you to be better and make an active and consistent effort to actually be better. Much like we mentioned earlier, no matter how great the engine that runs the car that is your life is, if you don't oil it well enough with a consistent service and oil change, then all of that will come crumbling down eventually. So take care of yourself. Make sure that you focus on your efforts. Make sure that you focus on the things that you make you the person that you want to be, not just the person who you are. Live in the present, take note of the past, and think of the future.
And thank those around you and appreciate those around you. So if this should be a reminder to call your parents, your sisters, your
tell your mom and dad that you love them,
that you love them,
and tell yourself that you love yourself, as you should.
Facts. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise,
2
brother.
hours probably.
How long's it been?
I don't
Nice.
know, man.
2 hours and almost that entire bottle of Jameson.
I thought that we would not drown this, but
I think we probably should.
no, I'm already feeling it in my head.
Yeah, that's okay.
So, see.